overwhelm can happen very easily. I'm not saying people can't have that many, but I encourage people to keep it manageable. It's if you're serving too many and you're trying to juggle, too many tennis balls or spin too many plates, and you can't do them all, what's going to wind up happening is a lot of them are going to hit the floor.
I really honestly believe if you don't have a genuine vision for your life, that you will perish. Just like the proverb says, people without vision, they perish. But have no fear, Steve is here. Welcome, Steve. I'm so glad to have you with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's good. It's just so amazing that we're connecting here today and sharing this amazing energy like two old friends sitting on a front porch. So ready to
And
rock.
that's what it feels like to me also, Steve. Steve, I'm going to launch really with a very crucial question.
Mhm.
How does someone even begin to find their vision? Because I find so many individuals that they answer me, I don't know. I don't know what I'd like. They're like, they're lost in a sense. So help me help them find their vision in a way.
And there are so many people out there like that. And here's a little inside look. I used to be there as well. So I will share what works for me. And in a world that is louder and faster and more crazy and chaotic than ever before, step one, unplug from everything. Go old school. Go sit somewhere quiet. Leave all the electronics at home or in the car. Put pen to paper and just start to pour it all out. Where is my life working right now? What is good? If not good, what could be good? What am I this close to? What are my toes hanging on to as a solid brick under my feet right now? And then from that spot, how could it be better? How could my relationship be better? How could my physical health be better? How could my faith be stronger? How can I be a better advocate for other people? How can I cheer people on? How can I be a better cog in the wheel of everything good in this world? And start to think in that way. And please don't just go the route of material things. Oh my gosh. So many people, I've been doing this for 20 years. Hey, Steve, I made a vision board. Here, what do you think? And it's what I refer to as the vision board starter kit. Lamborghini, yacht, mansion, private jet, helicopter, big honking jewelry, and a bank vault full of gold bars. I'm like, okay, where were you in this? So that's the first step. Quiet all the noise, put pen to paper, and really start digging for the best of yourself in all areas of your life.
I love that you're saying to actually dig within yourself. And it's not about the images that you just mentioned. How did you even begin this journey, Steve, to become a vision board master? Because it really is crucial
Mhm.
for people to understand that you don't just arrive, it's a
Yeah.
process. So, how did you even begin this process?
I wrecked my entire life
Mm,
21, 22 years ago.
mm,
Walked away from a successful 10-year radio career. My first marriage ended. And at age 35, I was $62,000 in debt because I had not been paying attention.
mm.
And I just kept spending and spending and investing in, I wasn't wasting it on junk, but I spent $30,000 building a recording studio right about the time I quit my full-time job.
Wow.
So I was in the ashes. And I'd been on at that point about a 13-year personal development journey. Of course, I had the Tony Robbins cassette series, Personal Power 2, from my 20s, and was reading things like, Jack Canfield and Brian Tracy and all these people. But all of a sudden, I put myself in such a horrible spot that I could never even imagined. So I got rid of all of that stuff and I started over. And through a friend of a friend, I met a life coach who was a musician in a band. He was the husband of a friend of mine from business networking. She knew I had a studio and said, hey, my husband has a band. Would you record them and maybe trade some coaching time? Best decision ever. Because he and I would have conversations and he would just ask me questions. So, what would you like to do? Where do you see your life going? How are you doing? with all of this, having thrown your life into the ashes. And slowly, through a couple of very significant moments that happened right around 2003, he would ask me, have you ever thought of doing this? I mean, I spent an hour in a thunderstorm hitting a $3 bucket of golf balls under power lines, barefoot in the wet grass in the middle of a thunderstorm, daring God to hit me.
Yikes.
And he thought that was so hysterically funny that he asked, have you ever thought of being a motivational speaker or stand-up comedian? I said, I've wanted to do both since I was 11. And he gave me the first steps to pursue each one. And then he asked me if I've ever heard of The Secret, because he thought I would really be fascinated by it and the law of attraction. And I was. And I learned about vision boards and visualization through a sliver of The Secret. Less than 3 minutes out of 98 minutes in a DVD. And I was so fascinated by that I immediately put it into action. Very badly at first. My first couple of vision boards were mostly material things because I was broke. But I slowly learned about all the other areas of life. And then as I started to create success in my life, other people saw me and asked me to teach them how to do it. And eventually I created an audio learning program to guide people through. So my early steps were really ugly, but got to go through that fire to figure out what works and keep going and growing. And 20 years later, here we are.
What's the difference from someone taking personal development courses, listening to a variety of stuff versus someone really looking at a vision and delving in? What is that difference? Because there are a lot of wonderful material out there, but yet there's still a lot of people that are struggling.
Yeah. Unfortunately, and I'm critical of my own industry a lot. There is way too much rah, 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 buy my stuff out there. And people get addicted to that. There's an endorphin rush. There's a high in trading your credit card for something that a speaker on stage who's getting 5,000 people to jump up and down and clap and cheer and yell and scream and thumping music and fog machines and lasers that gets you fired up. But when you get back home, it's just you and your mirror and this thing you spend a bunch of money on that you have no idea how to implement or if it is even going to work for you, but you got caught up in that rush. I've been there. I've spent probably tens of thousands of dollars on personal development over the years that was going to fix my life before I learned to go inside and figure out who I am first, what I love most about myself, what my strengths are, and being brutally honest. And unfortunately, my self-talk was brutally bad for too many years. So as many books as I read or as videos as I watched or podcasts as I listened to or programs that I invested in, the person whose hand should have been on the steering wheel kept driving into the gutter and off of cliffs. So I think it's so important that we know who we are and where we want to go. And we have the vision. Somebody may lend us a really nice vehicle to get there, but we have to be in charge of that. Don't ever let anyone dictate to you what success means or how to define it. It's up to each of us. And I believe not enough of us know that or really feel it in our gut that it is up to us. I know what mine is. My vision board upstairs is the greatest one I've ever made.
What is it?
It's up in my office. But it's got
what do you got in it?
It's got all 8 areas of my life represented. And in the center of the board, now this is a strategy. Anything I share, by the way, is what has worked for me.
Mm-hmm.
There's no absolutes in personal development. The most important part of my life is my wife, Tina, and I, and our relationship. We are dead center of that board. And there's so many pictures and reminders of what I love most about that. And then everything else builds out from there. My physical health, I've been taking extra good care of myself the last couple of years, got back to working out, eating healthier, put down the alcohol. Not that it was ever a big issue, but it was a lazy habit, big, tall rum and Coke every night. And it packed on the pounds. And so all of these other parts of my life are all bricks in the foundation. And this is the most integrated board I believe I've ever made. And I've had success in some way, shape, or form with every board I've created. I mean, I built our relationship before we even reconnected in the early 2000s. But what I've got going on now is the best version of me there's been in a long time. And I absolutely love my life, who I am, and where I'm going. That's a big part that not enough people realize the importance of.
I love that you incorporated all facets of your life into the vision board, and that you put your relationship, you and your wife, at the center of it before adding in all the other pieces. Because I feel a lot of times that people fall apart because they're not taking care of themselves and who they are, just like you said. And that's where vision starts. But I'd like to take you back to your career on the radio, and when you had it just fall apart. What do you think was going on within you that made you blow it up? Because there are so many people that believe that success is a career, success is a certain amount of money or a certain something. So take me through that journey so that someone out there that is looking at their life can go, I need to begin here.
Yeah. Radio was something I'd wanted to do also since I was 11 years old. And I lacked the confidence to do it. And in the early 20s, my early 20s, I was living on my grandfather's couch, broken, depressed at age 24, wondering what to do with my life. And a friend of mine asked why I never followed my dream of being on the radio. And so I did. I pursued it. And I was on the radio for 10 years. But here's the thing. I didn't actually use my voice until year number 8.
Mhm.
So even though I was living what some people thought was the dream job, I still had so much conflict in my own head and in my own heart that I was afraid to even use my own voice because I didn't think I had a good radio voice. So even though I was living this amazing dream and in this incredible industry and having a ball, I was frustrated every day because I still had so much fear. And it wasn't until I had to that I used my voice finally on the radio. And then I learned in a very quick 4-day trial period that instead of trying to sound like what I thought someone else thought I should sound like, I finally just went on the Friday morning of that week and I said, hey, everybody, 6:55 a.m., Steve here, New Hampshire's Classic Rock, Big 101.5. You know, I may stink as a DJ, but if you tolerate me reading the weather for the next 42 seconds, I'll play you a great rock song. And I said it just fell out like that. And my boss came down as soon as I hit the music, leaned in with a huge smile. He says, brother, that was the funniest thing you said all week. Just be yourself. And that was the moment that changed my life. But unfortunately, in the background, my marriage was falling apart due to lack of communication. I was DJing weddings virtually every weekend. So physically, mentally, spiritually, I was just exhausted. And when I'm that exhausted, I'm just looking for a door to just escape from. And I did.
And it's really neat that you're saying that on the outside, in a sense, you were successful, you had a good career, but all these other facets of your life were falling apart.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you go from that to then genuinely begin to work on building an authentic life? Because that's one of the great things that attracted to me to even inviting you to go, yeah, come on in. How did you go from the crumble to begin to become a vision board master?
A lot of pens and a lot of blank journals that got filled up because I just dug in deep. And I said, first off, I want to be the best version of myself going forward. And even before I knew I wanted to become a speaker and a stand-up comedian, which were the other two things that I wanted to do when I was 11, I needed to be a better version of myself. I need to be more open. I need to be not afraid of conflict because I used to just turn and run or be quiet and just bury myself in the middle of it all. And that's not a healthy way to be. You know, you always want to be, oh, I just want to be a nice person. Well, that can hurt you in a lot of ways because you take on the burdens and the energy and everything that just weighs you down. And I didn't want to be that way anymore. I also told myself, I only want to fall in love one more time. And that's going to be the love for the rest of my life. So I better be the best version of myself, because that woman who comes in my life at the right time deserves that. Also want to take better care of myself in my health because my machine was falling apart. All the aches and pains and everything from not taking care of myself, not sleeping well, not eating good food. Every part of my life had to get back on track. Now, it doesn't mean everything has to be a 10 on a scale of 1 to 10, but you've got to start paying attention to all of these things. And for the first year, I didn't even go on a single date. I did not even want to be in a relationship because I don't want to just jump back into the old patterns and behaviors. So it was, mercifully, my family, my dad, where I just built my first recording studio, was in his home. He said, why are you looking for an apartment? You're here working in your studio in your office every day. Just take the bedroom down the hall. And what felt like the biggest loser moment of my life turned actually out to be the greatest gift, because his health had started to creep downhill. Me being there, I found out later, allowed he and my stepmom to keep the house that they'd built. Mm-hmm. So everything that I thought was wrong, it turned out to be the most fertile garden ever. And I get to be crystal clear about who I wanted to be. And then all of a sudden, all these people showed up in my life and educated, inspired, motivated, smacked me upside the head. They all had their role and they all had their impact, and I treasure them all. I'm still very close with a number of them who've been impactful.
Steve, you hit on something that's so crucial. I'm going to say it this way. When people hit a roadblock and then their self-talk comes in to tell them, loser, blah, 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 and they allow things to fester, it really does most of the time become one of the greatest stepping stones to their greatness. For me, the pandemic was, in a sense, one of those. It allowed me to be home with my parents when they needed me the most, and for me to get to see all of that, but for me to go even deeper into what I would like to see out in the world. And that's when I started the podcast. I wouldn't have started this podcast if it wasn't for the pandemic and the things that went on. So touch on that when you're doing training, when you're speaking. How do you reach people about specifically the issue of when they hit a hurdle? What ought they do? What is the best thing that you say to them to get them out of that tough self-talk?
Yeah. The two things that have made a huge difference for me is honoring myself. And my self-talk was brutal for years. Now, here's the catch to that. I'm very naturally a funny person. So I would do it, but I would get laughs doing it. So I didn't see the damage for a long time. So if you're out there and you're listening to people who say, be self-deprecating, it'll ingratiate you to the audience. No, do not do that. Do not beat up on yourself, because you are educating the world about your value. That was the first part for me, was learning that. It took me 10 years to learn that. The second part is, when you're thinking of the person you wish to be, or the goals, or whatever success looks like in your life, roadblocks will pop up. People will get in your way. You will have bad days. You'll have bad years, months, whatever. Understand why you want that in your life, and knowing your why and feeling it emotionally in your gut is the gas in your tank that's going to keep those pebbles that pop in your path from becoming Jersey barriers. Too many people get knocked off their path because of one person's opinion, or something that comes down that doesn't work out right away, or tries to knock them off their path. Too many people go, well, I guess it's not meant to be. If you know your why, and you can say it. If I woke you up at 2 a.m. and said, what's your why for this goal? If you can say it to me, then you greatly reduce the odds that anything will knock you off your path. That's
Give me
huge.
A couple of more things that someone could look at as they're looking to even do their vision for their life. Obviously, they can connect with you and learn a lot more, but give me a couple of nuggets that someone can go, this is the right, not the right way, but the better way to actually do a real vision.
Definitely keep in mind all of the different areas of life. And I use a life wheel, which is a pretty standard tool in personal development, because so many people, when you ask, what are your goals? They name off the material things because that's what we've been told over the years. That's the bill of goods we get sold all the time. We see
Great.
the guys in their
What's the life wheel?
Lamborghini.
Because some people may not be in
Yeah.
personal
Oh,
development
yeah.
at
I'll
all.
share all the spokes of the life wheel.
Yeah.
Your physical health. Have in I'm going to talk in increments of 1 year. Don't even think of the in 20 years my life's going to be amazing. Let's focus on 1 year. That's a manageable thing. Your physical health. It's very important to have goals for your physical health, your weight, your fat percentage content, whatever. Your emotional well-being. Wouldn't it be amazing to set a goal to be happy every day or feel the emotions you want to feel every day? Your closest relationships. What do you want those to be like? Your core values that guide everything you think, speak, and do. What are your rules that govern how you interact with the world? Your faith and spirituality, if that's an important part of your life, kind of does the same. It just comes from a different direction. How close are you to the rules of whatever energy, God, universe that you choose to believe in? Your connection to the world in a real way. And that's taken a beating over the past 5 years. People feel isolated and anxious. They say, I wish I could connect with the world more. I want to feel more part of the fabric. Well, how could you do that? And then your work and your money. If you set just one goal for 1 year in each one of those categories, you might be amazed at how solid your foundation becomes very quickly. It's so much deeper than that whole work-life balance that people say, I just want work-life balance. Well, life is 7 of those things that I just talked about. And if you think they're 50-50, you're diminishing the scope of what you could actually achieve and who you could become, even in a very short time. And that's huge. And most people just aren't aware of that. Now, I've been on a personal development journey for more than 30 years, 20 that I've actually been teaching it and speaking on it. So many people are unaware of even that simple thing of how many pieces our lives are made up of and how quickly we can get back on track if we're just aware and intentional. And also on a very regular basis, this is the second part, be grateful for the moments that happened today. I do that first thing in the morning after my workout. I get to my desk, I pull out my journal, it's under the back of my laptop. I write the date and I write the words good stuff. And I write 1, 2, 3, and in less than a line each, I write my 3 favorite moments from the previous day. And there's no broad brushing. I don't write I'm thankful for my health, my home, and my relationship. You say the same thing over and over for 11 or 12 days, it's not going to have the same fire. But every day I get fired up over my favorite moments. And I write them as funny or creatively or as emotionally connected as I can in less than a line each. Now, the first thing people are going to say is, I don't have time for that. After I got tired of hearing people say that, one day I set up my camera and I did my gratitude exercise. Took me 38 seconds. We've got time. And even, you mentioned the pandemic and how challenging it was for people. People go, oh, 2020 was a dumpster fire. 2022 was dumpster fire part 2. And 2023 was dumpster fire, in 3D. I still wrote down an average of between 875 and 925 positive moments in each of those years. So
I
you
love
can't
that.
just throw it away.
I love that you said you're emotionally connected to the gratitude. They're not just writing down. And you touched on something so important. 1 year, one goal for each of those pieces.
Yeah.
What happens to people that have 10 goals, 20 goals in each category? From your trainings, from the things you've done, what happens do you see with people? And I really would love for people to get this.
Yeah. Overwhelm can happen very easily. I'm not saying people can't have that many, but I encourage people to keep it manageable. It's if you're serving too many and you're trying to juggle, too many tennis balls or spin too many plates, And you can't do them all. What's going to wind up happening is a lot of them are going to hit the floor. And when things start to hit the floor, some people get very discouraged by that. And they feel, well, I'm not good enough for this. And they let everything fall. So it's very easy, very easy to overwhelm ourselves. That's why I tell people, look, start slow and easy, get your pace. And it's in direct contrast to what a lot of speakers are out there. Take massive action all at once and change all these things in your life. Hey, most of us are not wired that way. We don't have the confidence to keep it going. We need to take our small steps. It's like the first hill of an old wooden roller coaster. We have to go click, click, click. We don't just jet power over that first hill and expect to enjoy the ride and be able to handle it. So I believe that's where our momentum, our better habits, our confidence get built, is just by systematically keep it simple at first, but moving forward each day with intention, on purpose, with purpose, to get to that better place.
Thank you for saying that, Steve, about the rah, rah, rah and the massive action, because there is a lot of that overwhelm that's going on right now with a lot of the industries or people going, you can do 1,000 things. It's like, maybe you can, but are you going to be happy at the end? Are you going to be fulfilled at the end of the day? Is your life going to be what you really are looking for it to be? And that's why I'm so intrigued and love what you're doing and what you do, because how do we get humans to become better versions of themselves for real? That's my intrigue with putting you on, putting a lot of individuals that have been through really rough things in their life and have found their way. So I know I've asked it in a different way, but if someone is struggling right now, what is one piece of advice that if you had them right in front of you and could stare them in their eyes, what would you say to them?
What do you like about your life right now? And they may say nothing. I'm like, well, there's got to be something. You have the courage to come here and sit with me. Well, yeah, okay. Because I'm not that intimidating a guy. I'm about as threatening as a salad. So, I always make people laugh and feel comfortable because that's my style. I say, all right, well, hey, you're here. And just the fact that you want to create something better in your life, that tells me there's something really good about you. It's inside there somewhere. You got that little tiny spark. You want something better. You want to be a better version of yourself. Well, yeah. The thing is, they just don't know how to verbalize it yet sometimes. So I'll ask questions. What would you like your life to be like? And they'll throw one of their goals my way. And I'll say, okay, so what does that look like? And they may be able to describe it. And then I get into the connections of all the senses. So what do your goals look like? What do they feel like? What do they sound like? What do they smell like? And what do they taste like? And that's when they start laughing, like, my goals have a smell? Yeah. And so I just asked them, all right, if you had this, or if you were this, or if you became this thing that you say you want, what would it sound like? Like, what would be going on around you? Where would you be? Who would you be with? And what are the textures or the fabrics or the somethings about it? And I had a buddy of mine reached out to me recently because he knows what I do. And he took a picture of a house. He owns a garage door company down in Texas. Took a picture of a house. He goes, oh, Steve, man, I want to buy this house. I want to live in this house someday. He goes, but I don't know how to pursue it. I said, well, all right, we dove into all the senses. And we discovered that on the day he moves in, he wants to have a huge barbecue in his backyard to thank everybody who made it possible and helped him with the move. And he's got a smoker and a grill. So from him taking a picture, driving by a house with just those questions, he could feel his bare feet on the brick patio out back. He could smell the hickory chips from the smoker, the barbecue sauce that was dripping all over the grill, the music that was playing in the background, and all his friends laughing and joking and having a good time celebrating together his first day in that new house. And he said, yeah, that's a little stronger than me just driving by and saying, I'd like to live in this house someday. Those are the conversations I have with people. And what I love the most is watching them light up from the beginning part of not knowing to the end part, telling me a story of them already experiencing it and what it's going to be like with all those senses. It's pretty amazing. And I get to have those conversations a lot. You know, one guy who someday wants to have his own private jet. I do a thing here in the recording studio. I got a picture of the jet, sound effect of the jet idling on the runway. From the interior of the jet, I'm the voice of the captain. I'm the cockpit announcer guy. I named him, his business, the fact that it's got the most luxurious carpeting that you can scrunch your bare feet into the carpet and feel it, the delicious food we're going to be enjoying, and the fact that we're going to dump blue toilet water all over the roofs of the houses of every person who doubted him over the years. That was the humorous aspect of it. He sent me a message last week. He goes, Steve, I just got to fly on somebody else's private jet. I got invited. I know what jet fuel smells like now. He goes, bro, that was amazing. And he just said it strengthened his belief in himself that he will achieve this goal someday, because he already knows how it looks, feels, sounds, tastes, and smells.
I think it's incredible that you take them into this journey, because even as you were describing the house of your friend in Texas, I could feel and taste the pieces that you put in there. So it's really neat that you allow them to go on that journey. And for listeners, that's a great key. You started to talk about the why, and what is the significance of a why in a vision board?
The why is what's going to keep you going when it feels like everything else is falling apart or working against you or not going to happen, or your self-belief is, you know, your inner critic or your imposter syndrome voice is telling you you can't, you're not worthy, whatever. When your why is gut level and you actually feel it, that is so critical. Now, many people don't know their why fully defined yet. 2 years after I became a speaker in the early 2000s, a friend of mine asked me, why do you want to be a speaker? I said, because I want to motivate people. He said, why? I said, and I just flipped the words. I go, because people need to be motivated. He goes, no. Why? 17 whys later, I had tears coming out, both eyes running down my cheeks. And I remembered my friend Danny, who, when I was 24, believed in me and asked me why I never followed my dream of being on the radio. I got my first radio job at the end of the summer of 1992, and I drove to Danny's house to share the good news. And he was so excited and so proud. And of course, I got the I told you so speech. 3 weeks later, Danny passed away. He'd had cancer twice before, and it came back very quickly. And I was there holding his hand when he passed away. At the end of the 10 years in radio, I was sitting at the front of the stage in front of 15,000 people watching a fireworks show after the bands were done. And I looked up at the sky knowing I was quitting radio. And I started talking to Danny. I go, man, can you believe this? Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And when I became a speaker, I wanted to be for my audience what Danny did for me. I want to believe in you at a time when you may not believe in yourself. And if I can help you to believe in yourself, that's my why. And on the 17th question from my buddy Mike Roberts, who asked me that, and I was finally crying saying all that because I hadn't thought about it in years, he goes, good, don't ever forget that. And I haven't. If you woke me up at 2 a.m. and said, Steve, why are you a speaker? I will tell you that story about my friend Danny. That's how sure we need to be. And you won't get it right on the first try. Find somebody you trust to keep asking you why until you hit pay dirt. And you'll know when you do, because there'll be a shift and you go, where did that come from? That's my why.
That is so brilliant and so truth, because I'm saying we collectively, a lot of times don't desire to dig deep enough to really look at what drives us and what makes us really get up in the morning and get excited about doing some of the minutia that gets us to the things that at the end of it, you go, this was worth it. So that digging deep is crucial, that why. And I find that a lot of times, unless they have a way of really stepping in and someone asking them lots of questions and being authentic with themselves and with whomever is possibly in front of them asking them, they will not get to the point, and they might go through stages of still being unsuccessful in whatever it is that they're going through. So how do you help them dig deeper, Steve? How do you help someone dig really deep?
It starts off by building trust with people, because, and we see it, you know, we see motivational speakers call people up on stage and say, I just created a shift in that person. I believe you got to build up trust, and it can take time. But when you can start to just chip away, like my buddy Mike did, it took him 17 times saying, that's not good enough yet. That's not deep enough yet. That's not real enough yet. You haven't hit the nerve yet. If you don't have somebody in your life you trust, use a mirror. And when you hit that smile or that look, or your eyes get glossy and you see that shift, you're onto something. It may not be the final reason or the full 100% reason, but you're onto something. And sometimes I ask people, well, why do you want this goal? Because my life stinks right now. Okay, let's get a little deeper. Let's not just be reactive. Let's be proactive. And let's say, okay, here I am right now. Here's where I want to be. Why do I want to be this way? Because I know what hunger is. I know what pain is. I know what frustration is. I don't want to feel that way anymore. So I want to get from here to there. Great. What's going to be different when you get there? You're going to be more appreciative of what you have. You're going to honor yourself. Who do you need to bring on the journey with you? Who would you like to bring on the journey with you? You know, what's a bigger part of the why? Huge part of why for me is always, no matter where I go in life, turning around, looking over my shoulder for somebody else who's trying to make the journey, putting in the effort, but maybe can't figure out the way, and reaching out a hand to them. I get to do that as a speaker, as an author, as a guest on podcasts, as host of my own show, on stage, off stage, backstage, walking down the Captain Crunch aisle at the grocery store. I'm always looking for a way to leave a situation better than I find it. And that's a big part of my why, because that's what Danny did for me. So that's where I start with people, but you've got to earn trust to be able to do that.
I'm going to throw you in. Why is that part of your why?
I just
To
love
make them
helping
better.
people.
Why?
I love helping people because I've been there. I have been at the absolute rock bottom. I've doubted myself. I've hated myself. There have been times, I mean, gosh, I was standing there in a thunderstorm under power lines, barefoot in the wet grass, holding up a golf club, and literally looked at the sky and said, go ahead, I dare you. At the lowest point in my life. Now, I was trying to be sarcastic and be funny. I was not mad at God. Me and God, we're great. We talk every day. And no matter where I am, I see moments and I look up and I go, that person was supposed to be here. Thanks for putting that person here. Remind me of my why. I just saw somebody I could help. And that happens to me every single day. And it goes back to me just wanted to shine some light or leave somebody with a plus sign for us having connected in some way that day, whether it's in person, on Zoom, or dropping a message or an email or a text or something. And the best part is I'll never run out of light or plus signs because I own the factory.
You certainly
it's
do.
like the old chip commercial. Crunch all you want, we'll make more. And it just goes, that's just who I am as a person. I just want to leave as many situations as possible better than I find them, even in the smallest ways. And I'm just hardwired for that now. Wherever I am, I just look around. And I get to make connections all day long. And that fuels my fire. And I love it.
Now, you touched on a lot of the wonderful things that you do, from speaking to teaching to all of the things that you do. What about your philanthropy?
That's
How
my
did you
favorite.
even get started with that? And the name Beach Bum.
Yeah. When my sister and I were kids, we're only about 16 months apart. So we've been super close my entire life. And when we were kids, our mom said, someday I want to buy a building and put a bunch of homeless veterans in it, let them fix it up and live there for free, and programs for, alcohol or addiction or whatever, some non-denominational faith, services for them, help them get a job or a GED or something. She goes, I want to create this whole environment to just help these people. And it never came to pass because it's a very expensive thing to do. About 12 years ago, my mom sent me a message. Hey, did you see the local newspaper this morning? They had a feature on this place called Liberty House. She goes, it's everything we wanted to do when you and your sister were kids. She goes, they have a little old house and they have veterans come in off the street and they have some who actually get to live there and all these programs. And she said, I wonder if we should reach out and just see what they need. So we did. And I made 6 of the most disgusting peanut butter and jelly sandwiches on the dashboard of my Honda CRV and brought them over one day. And they were gross. I made a heck of a mess. And they could not have been more gracious or more appreciative of the effort. And the next week, we reached out and said, well, what else do you need? And then we started to all get the bug, our whole family, of wanting to do acts of kindness. And somebody said, well, Steve, you got to give it a name. What do you want to be in life? And I just said beach bum, because I just learned how to surf at the time. And beach bums are just so laid back. And my favorite sound in the world beyond laughter is waves crashing on the rocks at the beach. So I said, I want to be a beach bum because I want to be so laid back about it, but yet very proactive and make it fun. So Beach Bum Philanthropy was born as what I referred to as a hippie kindness mission 12 years ago. And 3 years ago, it became an official 501c3 because my sister bravely went through all of the paperwork twice to get the state to finally approve it. But now what it allows us to do is seek out donations and contact companies and take our hearts and passion for giving and let other people tap into it through what we're doing so they can feel it too. And we just got a very generous donation yesterday from a big company who everybody that wanted to wear jeans on Friday in the month of September paid a few bucks in. And they sent us the September money yesterday, and it was a couple $100 that's going to help us to do what we do because they were so excited about what we're doing. They wanted to contribute towards it.
Curiosity.
That fires me up every day.
What's the impact on you by doing these acts of kindness, by helping someone else? What does that feel like, Steve?
This is the happiest version of me there's ever been. That doesn't mean life is perfect. The last few years have been a struggle between anxiety, depression, and just everything that happened with the pandemic. I had 3 deaths very close to me. But the constant the whole time has been being a giver. And in a moment of connection with another living soul, whether it be a human or an animal or something, or even just picking up a piece of trash in the parking lot that somebody could have slipped on or tripped over. Every time I do it, it helps me to feel like I'm a more important part of this world. So I need to just continue to get stronger and better and more focused and more intentional. And for all the people, and right now, Powerball, I think, is over $1.5 billion. That's when all the people come out who are just bribing God for lottery numbers, saying, if I win, I'm going to help the homeless. I was helping the homeless, or at least committing acts of kindness, when I was dead broke and tens of thousands of dollars in debt. And I think that's what most people don't realize, is that you have enough and you are enough right now to make a difference. And you might just find out that the person who gets the most out of it is you, not in a selfish way, but you walk away and go, that felt good. I want to do that again. That's my one addiction. Well, 2, 5-hour energy and acts of kindness.
Can you give
they
us
both keep me going.
some examples of those acts of kindness that someone can think of? Because some people think, I don't have anything. What is it that I can do? And it's important for people to understand that we all have something that we can do or give. So give me a couple of possibilities for someone that is not even thinking on that radar scale.
Yeah. Some of my favorite ones cost absolutely zero money. Holding a door for someone, smiling at somebody, paying someone a compliment, Even during the pandemic at the deli counter at our grocery store, this woman always wore these very decorative masks. Well, it turns out her sister would hand make them for her. And I would make her laugh every time I went in there, and I could see her eyes crinkle up. That's how I could tell she was smiling. So doing that, one of my favorites, I call it shopping cart rodeo. When I go to the grocery store or any store, if there are carriages left outside, I don't get mad, because I've met people who had to use them as walkers because physically they could barely get to their car. So I don't get mad about that. I will just go rescue them and bring them back. If I see somebody who's putting the last couple bags of groceries in their car from a safe distance, I'll say, "Excuse me, would you like me to return that for you?" No one's ever said no. And I've had some amazing conversations with people, laughter and connection and just joy and appreciation. So even in those simplest things like that, if you're at the store and you see something that fell off a shelf onto the floor, put it back up on the shelf. Even if it's not in the perfect spot, leave a situation better than you found it. Wish someone a great day. Say please and thank you. Compliment an employee at a store who looks like they might be having a tough day. One of my favorite lines to say is, "I hope I'm the meanest, nastiest person you have to deal with the rest of your day." And sometimes they go, "Oh no." I go, "I think you got it backwards." And they go, "No, wait, yes." Just leave a plus sign behind you in the simplest ways. I'm so addicted to doing this. I love going somewhere and just looking up and going, "Who are you going to send me? Who are you going to put in my path today?" And sometimes people have said, because we do the kindness, they go, "You guys are like angels." No, a lot of times when I go to the store to play shopping cart rodeo, it's because I'm in a frustrating or tough spot, having a rough day. I'll get out of here and go into town to purposely commit an act of kindness. And every time, God, the universe, puts someone in my path that allows me to do it. So to me, they're the angels, because they show up and give me an opportunity to do something that's going to help my day get better. That's how I see it.
Is there a common factor to giving, to standing up and training, to being in front of corporate individuals, right? Individuals that are not in corporate? Is there a common factor that is in your intentions as you're in front of different individuals?
To be the most authentically genuine expression of who I am as a human being. Now, that means I run the risk of I may not be somebody else's cup of tea, and that's okay. But when I am the most pure version of me, and I joked earlier, on stage, off stage, backstage, standing on the street corner, or walking down the Captain Crunch aisle, I say those because I've had incredible conversations and connections with people in all of those places.
Oh, do talk about the Captain Crunch aisle.
Yeah, it was about 8 years ago. I was driving from Massachusetts back to New Hampshire, and I was driving through a town, and I saw a grocery store, and I remembered, oh my gosh, I'm supposed to get some granola bars, some breakfast bars. So I said, well, I'm 15 minutes early for my next meeting, so I'll just stop here. It was not planned. We know I was supposed to be there because we always are. And I was walking down the cereal aisle. I just always call it the Captain Crunch aisle because Crunch Berries was my favorite cereal as a child. And most of the skin has grown back on the roof of my mouth, which is good. And a guy walked past me and he turned around and goes, "Hey man, you're that speaker, right?" And I looked around. We're the only two people in the aisle. I said, "Yes, sir, I'm a speaker. What do you remember?" He told me one of my stage stories, the picture that had been up on the screen at the time, the lesson of the stories, and how he had applied it the week after I spoke to land a job, because I had spoken for 43 unemployment networking groups throughout the state of Mass and state of New Hampshire, and he was at one of them. And he held his hand out to shake my hand, and I shook his hand. I said, "How long ago was that?" We figured it out. It had been 3 years. And he saw me in the grocery store, recognized me, and had the courage to reach out and have a conversation. The Beatles said it best in their song, "All You Need Is Love." There's nowhere you can be that isn't where you're meant to be. It's easy. All you need is love. Just being who you are. And since the day I decided to just be the same everywhere, boy, that's really been the best decision I ever made in my life.
Do you remember the talk yourself that you gave that
Yeah.
impacted him?
I remember the stage I was standing on. I remember the room. I remember there were 85 people there, and it was in an old church hall down in Massachusetts,
How did you
Acton,
show up?
Acton, Massachusetts.
How did you show up that day on that stage?
Same
As
as every other day. I had fun. We joked. We laughed. These people are hurting. They're frustrated. They're struggling. They're scared. They're full of fear. And somebody that brought me in for one of those. Now, I never made a dime for any of those. I did all of those for free because they obviously, I mean, there was just no money there. But I showed up the same as I would have if I was making $3,000 to $5,000 for that hour. It was, we've got to leave these people in a better place than we found them, even if it just gives them a little spark of hope, or help them to laugh on a day where they were just frustrated all day long about having to find a job, and just scared. And somebody that brought me in for one of them gave me the greatest testimonial. We can bring in people who are resume coaches, interview coaches, and all of these things. But when their souls need a recharge, we bring in Steve. That one actually made my mom cry. She may have even gotten a fridge magnet made of it. I don't know. But that was one of my favorite descriptions of who I am and how I show up.
I hope the audience is really hearing the authenticity in what you're saying and how crucial it is for the giving part to be a part of who we are, as well as how we show up every day. How did your relationship, this relationship, improve over a marriage that didn't work? How did you figure out what are the pieces that I need to become so that I can show up better in my relationships? Because life is all about relationships, whether it's a spouse or a partner or company. How did you narrow it down, Steve, for you so someone else can go, oh, this is where I would look?
You know, a big part of it was learning my love language. And there are great free quizzes online. Just look up what is my love language online and go do that. And for me, it's little moments in cool conversations and time together, and just the simplest gestures of just snuggling or cuddling up with someone. And everyone's different. But I finally learned that about myself, and that helped me to determine the best version of myself. And that the woman I was going to someday at the early 2000s fall in love with, I wanted her to be similar because I resonate so strongly with that. And I didn't have any money. So people who enjoy receiving gifts or these big gestures wasn't something I could do. So I said, okay, here's who I am. And I really like being this way. That went a long way into me growing into myself, in my confidence, in who I was. And I wanted to be more communicative and not turn away from conflict, but address it while the monster is small and express myself confidently and be okay with that. Potentially letting someone else down or disappointing them a little bit. Just be okay with it. And as I built up those muscles and built up that confidence and that definition of myself and really worked on myself, in early June of 2007, when I wrote down in my journal, I am ready to fall in love, she showed up 10 days later in an email from more than 1,000 miles away, 21 years after I had last communicated with her. She showed up, and we've been together 16 and a half years now. And it's been the single greatest relationship of my life. Head over heels in love. Wake up every morning. Whoever wakes up first, their foot finds the other person. And I always go, that's my first smile every single day.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Before I ask the last couple of questions, what is the best way, Steve, for the audience to connect with you, to reach out to you?
Nice and easy. They can find me at my website and all over social media under my name. But my website is stevegamlin.com. Gamlin.com, and that's Gamlin.
Thank you for keeping it simple for all of them.
Mm-hmm.
If I put you in front of a whole audience of early 20s, what would you love to say to the 20-year-olds?
You are going to screw this up so badly. And if I'm ever invited to a college commencement speech, that's my opening line for them as well.
And you will be, Steve. You will be invited.
Yep. You are going to screw this up so badly. And I want them to laugh when I say that, because I don't want to discourage them. I want to encourage them to go out there and try stuff. You're young, you're resilient. Go try stuff. Some things will work beautifully, but the best things will blow up in your face and give you dings, dents, scars, and lessons. Nobody's a China doll. We're all going to grow and strengthen over time. Don't be afraid to screw up. And also make your own definition of what success is really all about.
That's a great one. Would the advice be any different if I put you in front of people that are in their 30s, early 40s, that haven't figured out their way yet?
It would be because there's been a bit more time elapsed. What did you want to do when you were younger? What excited you? What fired you up? What did you say when you were a kid? I would love to do this for the rest of my life. If I could do this as a job. Well, we can't do everything for a job, but we can make something like that part of our lives. I had a great example early on in my speaking career, somebody who wanted to quit her full-time job because she wanted to work with children with disabilities, but she couldn't take the pay cut. So I encouraged her one Saturday morning a month to go volunteer for an hour at a local program. And she did. And it went from one Saturday to 2 a month, instead of 1 hour to 4. And she said, you know what? I don't mind working 65 hours a week anymore because I get to do that. It could be that simple. It's all about putting those slivers of time into our schedule that fire us back up. And people in their 30s, 40s, I've had clients in their 60s who suddenly look around and go, is this all there is? Like they got sold that bill of goods all those years and they believed it. Now they're getting to taste the things that they're passionate about, even just the taste. Doesn't mean you have to destroy a career like I did. I don't recommend doing what I did. My Phoenix rides a pogo stick, put it that way. It's been in and out of the ashes a number of times. But start to savor the flavors of what fires you up and gives you purpose and passion and excitement. And if you're not sure what it is, look in the mirror and rattle off a list. The one that makes you smile the most, start there.
My last question, Steve, and it's, how do you become authentic as you're building a vision? Because people think a vision is something that is so far out. So how do you become authentic in building those pieces?
That's a big part of why I encourage people to go a little shorter term, 1 year. Is this me? Would I really do that? And it's what I call the Spice Girls thing. You know, people say, this is what I want. And I'll go, is it what you really, really want? Like the Spice Girls said in their song. And they may say, oh yeah, 100%. And then if I start to dig a little bit, I'm like, is it what you really want? Or is it what somebody else told you success should be about for you? Because I don't want you to say that, put it as your vision, and then 3 weeks from now, look at your vision board and go, because that's what I did with my first vision boards. 3 weeks later, I wasn't even fired up for half of them anymore. So I had to put pen to paper again and basically hand myself a shovel. Start digging. What do you really, really want? What's going to fire you up? If you took everything else in the world away, what would fire you up? That's a really good place to start. And then, of course, what do they look like, feel like, sound like, smell like, taste like? Who are you in the mix? Not just what you get, who you become. If you put a cape around your neck, what would your superpower be? You might just want to let yourself see that in the mirror now and then let the rest of the world see it too. Because then the right opportunities and the right awareness, things are going to start to show up in your path. Just stop staring at your shoes or your phone all day. Open up your eyes, your ears, your heart, and your brain. The path will show up, but you got to create that vision for which direction you want to go in first.
Beautifully said. And that wasn't my last question. I have one more. Is there anything that you'd like to say that I haven't asked you, so we don't get off this podcast and go, I wish Rima had asked this?
It goes back to one of the books I wrote, which was technically written by a little rescued dog named Super Teddy Maximus, whom my wife and her mom adopted. In his book, tip number 2 bust out of your crate Super Teddy's top 20 tips for people to be as happy as dogs. Tip number 2 said, wake up every day and wag yourself happy, meaning put something good in your mind, your ears, your heart, your soul, your mouth, whatever, something good, positive, and healthy for you every morning. Don't wake up and immediately turn on the news, because that's bad. Don't listen to talk radio, because that's bad. Don't just jump up and get right on social media, because a lot of that is chaos and drama and screaming and complaining and whining and all that. And a lot of it's fake. If you like to laugh first thing in the day, get some YouTube videos that make you laugh. If your faith is important to you and your connection to God or whatever you choose to believe in, read a couple of pages from whatever your good book is. If you love connection, as soon as you get up, send somebody a message. I am so glad you're my friend. Have a great day. I do that a lot. Or if you got Zoom like we have, I'll get in here, as soon as I'm cleaned up after my workout, I'll send a video to somebody that day who I haven't talked to in a while and say, hey, do you remember the time we did this? That was my favorite memory. They always call me back and ask, how did you know I needed that today? So I woke up and wagged myself happy today. It made my day to make that video to send to you, and I'm glad it resonated for you too. So a little 9-pound dog named Super Teddy Maximus, wake up every day and wag yourself happy.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, Steve. Thank you for letting me drill you through this podcast.
Oh, believe me, I've been in dentist chairs with drilling before. This was nowhere near as punishing a process. This is absolute joy, and thank you so much for inviting me to share this conversation with you, my friend.
I appreciate all the nuggets that you gave everybody, and that last bit about sending a message to someone can really alter people's day. I've received some of those messages from people. I've sent them out, and it's an incredible feeling both ways, when you're sending them or when you're receiving them. That's a wonderful way of giving, and I appreciate you. And to our incredible audience, please remember, our attitude always determines our altitude in life. We'll see you in the next episode. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.